All right, so I'm gonna stick up for that lady who had issues with the Surgeon General doing his whole ghetto thing where he's like, calling grandmammies or pop-ups or abuela or big mama and all that crap. So I'm gonna take her argument, all right? I'm going to take her side on the argument. Obviously, the guy at this point, Jerome Adams, all right, he has a podium to speak to not only the American population, but pretty much a podium to speak to the world, actually. Anybody who covers it, all right? It's a pretty big stage at this point for this guy. And I can see how Latino Americans and Black Americans took umbrage with him going off script and calling and calling people of the Black persuasion and the Latino persuasion, big mama or pop, abuela, mammy, whatever else he said, and him, talking specifically to Black Americans and Latino Americans and telling them to not to abstain from smoking and doing drugs, etc., etc. Now, I'm going to agree with her, not because of the reasons why you guys think. All right. Now, if you guys have seen any of my videos, you know that I'm big on the media. I have a beef with the media. I have a beef with the media because the media matters. All right, let's just get that out of the way. All right, it's not just entertainment. It's not just information. It's not just throwing out information like he's doing or just entertainment. As a lot of these entertainers keep on saying, it's propaganda. Like all information, entertainment has a propaganda aspect to it. People watch it and it changes how they see themselves. It changes how they see other people. There's a whole entire advertising industry that exists just to change people's opinion on things. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. Media does matter. So since media does matter, all right, it's obvious that Black people over the last 20 years have pretty much cultivated their image by going all social justice warrior. There's Jews as well with, anytime Jews, civil rights organizations, the ADL, and whatever else you have as far as Jew civil rights organizations, the Black civil rights organization, anytime they see anything negative, anything slightly negative portrayed about their people, they'll go off on it. They'll go off. All right. They'll get the NAACP to correct it. The NAACP has an office right in Hollywood. I believe the ADL probably has an office right in Hollywood. They have a direct line to directors, producers, studio heads, etc., etc. I've always said that Black people have built an image over the last 20 years. And that image has gotten them where they are in 2019, in 2020. And that is essentially a cultural affirmative action program, all right? Which becomes a social affirmative action program because of how much it affects people and how they view other people and how they view themselves, etc., etc. All right? And these people who pointed the finger at this dude, Jerome Adams, the Surgeon General. They're like, you know, this stage is so big. This stage is so big that you have that, you know, it doesn't take much to ruin an impression of a race or a group of people. All right, there's a reason why the NAACP, GLAAD, ADL, every single other group, all right, do not want any kind of negative association, negative stereotyping, negative anything that has anything to do with their race. They will not have that, because it is pretty much it's pretty much a slippery slope when it comes to images. All right, they're doing racial promotion at this point. Hollywood is not about just entertainment. Most of it is now racial promotion, or race. It was about racial bashing also previous to this whole era of social justice warrior, but that has stopped quite a bit because everybody now is empowered with social media. They are now empowered with social media. All right, so here's what that lady and people who criticize the Surgeon General are saying when they hear these terms coming from him that are not on the up and up, that are not on the up and up of society. I mean, maybe back when in the, you know, maybe back when like 20 years ago, they'd be okay with it because they didn't have much of an image 20 years ago. All right, these days, if you watch commercials and TV and stuff like that, every single white dude or white lady has a black best friend, and every one of those best friends are upscale, upper middle class, rich people. All right. On top of that, every single black person that I've seen are either on TV are either lawyers, the doctors, the judges, the presidents, they're model minorities. They're absolutely outstanding with their grades with these. They're the utmost. They're essentially the model minority on TV, and in the media. They're essentially the model minority. They don't get depicted any other way but the model minority. In real life, they're not though. If you look at the statistics of black crime, out of black crime, rape statistics, IQ scores, graduation rates, murder rates, mugging rates, homeless rates, you know, lower income rates, STD rates. I could just go on and on and on and on and on with the list. All right, they are on the bottom rung. They got the highest stats of every single negative category that you can think of. But in the media, essentially, you know, they're the model minority. It's been that way for like 6-7 years. They include one black person, at least one black person, in any single given show, music video, etc., etc., etc. They do not do this with any other group of people. All right, if you watch The Family Guy, the Asians on that show, they're chinkish. All right, if the Latinos on that show are spickish, but the black characters on that show, well, they're Americanized. They speak, they speak English. You know, any kind of stereotypes that exist are either neutral or positive. There's never any kind of negative stereotypes with them on any of these shows. South Park, the same way. All these shows. I mean, they do stereotypes, but they're never negative. They're always positive or neutral. Positive, neutral stereotypes are not negative stereotypes. They're not racist. They're racial, but they're not racist. But getting back to my point, these people who criticize him do not want that screwed with. They do not want their image screwed with. All right? because the media works like this. If you let them off the hook once, they'll do it a second time, they'll do a third time. Some person get a whim of it that, you know, you can get away with certain things. They'll just keep on. And these images are really, really hard to erase. All right. At a certain point, it becomes part of society. It becomes part of how people see you. It becomes part of the racial makeup of a group. So they don't want anything negative associated with that. All right. They do not, because on a social level, it affects their job prospects because of how employers see you. It affects with social situations. All right. These black dudes wouldn't be getting these white chicks if they had the same image they did 20 years ago. The only reason that there's this many, you know, white female, black male, you know, relationships these days is because of the whole 20 years of brainwashing. You know, back then in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 2000s, if you guys were here back then, yo, these black dudes would have to like rape a chick to get a piece. Most of these black dudes would have to rape a chick to get a piece. All right, and looking at a white chick, you know, the wrong way, you're gonna get like an absolute dirty look back. All right, but they use the media to brainwash these chicks, to brainwash white people. All right. So here's why he's getting criticized for throwing out those ghetto ass names. Well, you know, ghetto ass names, I guess, you know, for grandmothers, for grandfathers, for uncles, for etc. etc. They don't want to go back to the 2000s. All right, it's a slippery slope. They don't want that little, you know, that little slip. They don't. That's the reason why they get on him for that stuff. It's not just because they were offended by it. All right, it's because they do not want their image being tarnished. Let's be real about this. All right, black people and Jewish people have cultivated an image through social justice warrioring on every single thing in the media, social justice warring for the last 20 years, that they don't want any of that being compromised. All right. But the worst part of it is these are the same people who go out of the way to point fingers at other people and call them social justice warriors for wanting the same dignity, for complaining about not being shown in a dignified way, for there to be biased images of them. Man, black people are black people and Jews. They're like the biggest, bitchiest hypocrites on the planet. And white people just don't get it. Dude, for the last 20 years, you guys pretty much have been told that you can't unload your racist shit on blacks and Jews. But what do? You guys don't do the right thing. You guys will unload your racist shit on Asians. You unload it on Latinos. You unload it on gays. You unload it on trans, women's rights groups. You unload it on fat people. You unload on every single person or every single group that you can get away with that shit, which is cowardly and hypocritical. All right. So I'm just letting you guys know what's up with this as far as this dude is concerned. And I'll go back to my previous video that I did about him. Apparently, Kama is a bitch. When, you know, throwing out that whole Pearl Harbor thing was racist. It was racist. Nobody calls you out on it. But these days, you slip up once, you get called out on other shit So you're getting it regardless.